You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
A kiss, as defined by Dan Webster, is something pleasing, a caress, a gentle touch. But there's another kiss that isn't in Webster's.
Hey world, we're kids!
Some critics say they don't make music, they just make noise.
Yeah, Kiss sucks!
Kiss implies the extreme in the theatrics on stage, utilizing fire and smoke and bizarre costumes, and the ever-consistent, constant concealment of their true identities.
Speaking of which, Kiss is going to have its own comic book soon.
Take Kiss with you. It's fun. Show your friends and be the first. Now.
Oh my God, no time to turn!
And welcome once again to No Time to Turn, a Kiss Nerd podcast.
Nerds.
As always, I'm Russ. I'm with Cap and Alex from the Something Good Network.
What's going on?
Hey, what's up?
And we've been charting Kiss's history album by album, year by year. Now we're in cycle by cycle.
Yes.
And things are going to get kind of even weirder because as we go into the new millennium, because we're up to the 2000 here.
Yeah.
Things start kind of slowing down in a weird way, but there's a lot happening. So we're going to be covering kind of about a 3 or 4 year stretch here on this episode.
Yeah.
Because things don't really, there's a lot that goes on, but it seems like it happens in little clusters.
Yeah, and it's all revolved around lineup changes and tour schedules and things like that. Not so much new music or anything on TV or anything like that.
Where we
Doing anything they can just to keep the ship afloat.
Keep it going. Well, I mean, which is ironic because when we ended on the last episode, we ended in October of 2000, Charleston, South Carolina, which I have dubbed the last ever Kiss concert. I've gotten some feedback on that.
Oh, yeah? Oh, have you?
Oh, yeah.
We might talk about that next episode.
Maybe. But it was the last ever Kiss show. However,
look, I agree with you.
I know. Well, there's a lot of people to do, but I'm just like,
You just gave me that look after you said it again, so I was like, I'm giving you confirmation. I agree with you.
In September, before this October ruckus goes down, they announced 6 Japanese dates. And a week later, the dates were canceled.
A week later.
Yeah.
So all this in September, they announce it, and then they cancel it a week later. And then there's no activity for the rest of that year. Peter trashes his drums. Good night, Charleston.
Paints the teardrop on his face one last time.
And
So is that why they canceled the tours? Because Peter just said, no, I'm not signing a contract or working extra
or whatever. Yeah.
Well, so
possibly. I mean,
according to Paul, so we take that as it is. After those dates wrapped up, which he says after the dates wrapped up, he came to him with it. But with what you're saying, with it being canceled a week later, I actually wonder if this correlates to Peter now drawing the teardrop on his eye, because they said he did that during the last leg of the run. So Paul offered Peter X amount of $1 million to play these shows, and just Peter outright said no. He's just like, no, I'm not going to do it.
I see. I understand. We talked about his rationale was he was not getting paid equal.
The same as Paul and Gene.
No, he wasn't getting paid the same as Ace.
Yeah.
Well, this
it had
time
nothing
around,
to do with the Paul and Gene. He might have countered at that point just to be an asshole. But I'm kind of like, that's where my sympathy starts to end with Peter. It's like, dude, take the money and run.
Yeah.
It's
nothing to sneeze at.
And that's when Paul, phrased it as, and Peter did the financially responsible thing and declined all the money and said no to the shows.
But there's probably, all the extraneous bullshit when you're dealing with people in a band, and if you don't get along, it can be laborious.
Yeah.
No, and for him, if he felt like he was in a financially secure situation, it really wasn't about the money for him.
Yeah.
Which, in that, you got to respect his integrity. That's
an
admirable position to be in. So it's easy to just be flippant and go take the money and run. But if he's just like, man, I don't really like spending my time with these guys, and I don't want to I don't want to do it. They're not paying me enough, show me the money.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and they weren't.
Well, that's
not
when he
what
starts
he thought
spouting
was
off
right.
the whole "I'm the most talented member in the band."
Yeah, well,
all that.
that's fine. Whatever. I'm not going to get into that.
Well, I say that because he used that as the bargaining chip, and then also when Paul claims he countered with, "Well, I will reach out to Eric Singer," and he goes, "No one's going to accept someone else in the makeup."
Well,
so that's why I bring it up, is because that supposedly
on the last day of January 2001, the new year, it's cracked wide open with the controversial announcement that Eric Singer has rejoined the band, which was followed almost immediately by a terse statement from Peter Criss saying that he had not been asked to continue on the ongoing farewell tour. I'm using farewell tour in quotations now.
Right.
And in his words, quote, "Gene and Paul chose to terminate their association with me," unquote. Termination.
Yes.
Another word for termination is
fired.
Yeah.
One has to wonder what effect this would have had prior to undertaking this quote unquote farewell tour.
What do you mean?
Would it have done as well if going into the farewell tour they couldn't come to terms and replaced Peter with Eric Singer on that tour?
I don't think they would have had a farewell tour.
I don't either.
No.
I think they just would have kept going and just kept calling it Kiss and just would have never done the quote farewell. Because, I don't want to jump ahead, but it is stated, and we can kind of see it, that morale boosted when Singer got in the band. Even Ace started playing better. So I don't see them seeing that as a situation of them starting to play. Even if Ace starts playing like he did during the reunion tour again, they're like, oh, okay, we might still have a chance here. I think there would have been no farewell tour.
I agree with that.
But talking about Singer being announced, I didn't realize it was that early on, because here's the thing. I distinctly remember this was around the time that my family got a personal computer. And I remember as clear as day asking Mom, "Can I get on the computer?" "Okay, fine." Got on, went to Kiss Online, just to look at just the photos. You just go, because especially when you're a kid, it was like the new version of the magazine. I just wanted to go to the website and look at the photos.
Pictures, yeah.
Well, sure as shit, I got a photo, and I remember even calling into Mom. I was like, "Mom, who's Eric Singer?" And she's like, "He was a drummer." I was like, "Oh, he's playing drums again." And I remember her, like, from outside the room, not knowing what it was. She's like, No, that's an old album." I was like, "No, he's in makeup." I hear of whatever she was holding or put down, ran into the room, immediately started looking at it. She goes, "Oh, no, they didn't. No, they didn't." And she basically pushed me off the chair and got on her Yahoo Instant Messenger. And I remember she was messaging her friend Jeff Young, and they immediately got on the phone and started talking about it. So I remember that was a big ruckus.
Well, you
day.
kind of jumped ahead of me here.
How? I'm on the day.
Because when they announced it, there was a moment there where everyone was like, "Oh fuck, what's he going to be? What's he going to dress up as? What's his character going to be?"
I thought that was the same day the photo was posted.
No.
Okay.
No, I remember this because I can remember being on these message boards back then. No, there was about a month where it was like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Is he going to be? Maybe they'll make him the Hawk. What's his character going to be?
That would have been interesting, actually.
And there were people going, "No, they're not going to do that because they own everything now." Mm-hmm. And the answer came on February 27th when he appears on a Australian television program with the band, and he is in the full Catman regalia.
Yes,
because Kiss owns the design. They own the character. They own the whole ball of fur. Right?
That was the same day the photo shoot must have gotten posted on Kiss Online. Because that's what I remember seeing, is because there's a distinct photo Eric talked about later on, saying that he didn't know how to properly do the makeup yet, on himself. So Paul did his makeup for that session. And there's such a weird photo shoot. It's a red background in their farewell costumes with Ace, Gene, and Paul with Eric, and it's just such a weird photo shoot.
Well, this makes logistical sense.
Because it's going to sell the most tickets.
Well, and plus they know that there is a segment of their fan base. See, Kiss likes the idea that they're a mainstream populist act.
Right.
And to that end, this is where the disconnect, even amongst Kiss fans, are, because they want to accept that too. That they're like Foreigner. You know, Foreigner tours with no original members now,
right.
And they still headline the big sheds to 8,000 and 10,000 people a night, which is insane to me.
Because they have 10 songs in regular rotation
on radio, and. It's like all of these anonymous bands that came up in the late 70s that had huge, that became the staple, the linchpins of classic rock FM radio, REO Speedwagon, Styx, Foreigner, all of these bands, no one can name a member.
No.
Or maybe they can name one or two, but I mean, these people are interchangeable. And because they have no personas, they have no charisma, they have no identity other than playing. They're talented. Maybe you can. I'm not knocking them for whatever they contributed.
So musicians care more than the general public,
but no one gives a shit. REO Speedwagon comes to town. If it's got the lead singer, they don't give a shit if the guitar player's there. They don't give a shit that it's nobody but the lead singer. And in some of these cases, Bad Company was touring for a long time with nobody but the original drummer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is how insane this shit gets. So you can get away with that with these bands, but with this band, they're trying to get away with the idea of, well, he looks like Peter Criss. If we don't say his name,
who's
if we
playing
don't
Batman tonight?
So it's the announcements weren't like trumpeted as heavily as like we were talking about how much press they got going into the farewell tour. It was a lot of unusual amount of press, like when they got their star on the Walk of Fame and all of this. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, we're not going to push this too hard. But, we'll announce it. We're not trying to hide anything from anybody. But at the same time, they're not going, Eric Singer on the drums.
No.
Because it's like.
Let me ask you. Do you this is the stuff I wish I had thought about beforehand. If I knew we were going to kind of go down this route,
we're going to go down this route many times on this show because we're playing musical chairs here for the next couple of years.
So, do you know when the Japanese dates went on sale, or the Japan dates rather
when
went on sale?
When they finally did go on sale? No, I don't.
Almost all of the dates are sold out. Mm-hmm. I would be very curious to know.
I'm almost positive that they were sold out before the announcement of Eric Singer. My memory of this is kind of blurred because I can seem to remember this being a topic of discussion on these message boards back in the day. Like, they pulled a bait and switch.
That's what I was kind of wondering. And to kind of lead it back to the question you brought up earlier, which is what if this happened right after the Psycho Circus tour instead of at the tail end of the farewell tour? I wonder if they had not put on sale the Japan and Australia tickets, sold out a good 99% of them. I think I did just a quick click through as you were talking. I think there was only 2-3 dates that weren't sold out or nearly sold out. I wonder if those dates had not gone on sale, done so well, if they would have even made the announcement. But only because they knew the ticket sales already did well. Yeah, all right, well, we'll go ahead and mention it. And, okay, you're a Kiss fan that lives in Japan or Australia in 2001. Let's be let's really step out the box a second. We're lucky as Americans. Would you get a refund just because one member backed out?
I don't know. That's what they're banking on. Exactly. And this is a way to test the water with it, because they're not in America. They're in Japan. Japan, you tour the whole country. I mean, it's what was it? It was 6 shows over the course of 2 weeks. And, I've gotten to play in Japan with my band. We got some heat from somebody going, oh, you call it a Japanese tour, you only played 3 nights. Well, yeah, but, 6 to 7 nights is a long run over there.
Really?
Yeah.
And
imagine Australia is not much different.
And Australia's probably, they did 8 shows over 2 weeks after that.
And
Australia.
Sold out 2 nights in a row kind of situations.
And Kiss is still red hot in Australia too, especially this time.
So, they're testing the water with this, and it's working because even though after these dates there are no further announcements regarding a final show. There's no further shows in all of 2001. These are all in the late winter, early spring. Down there, I guess it's the opposite. Summer and being on a different hemisphere or whatever. The summertime for them is wintertime, and it's whatever. Right. Summertime for them is the wintertime here. So it appears there's still money on the table.
Yeah.
Promoters are obviously like, we don't give a shit. The only people that are going to give a shit about this are people like us.
Yeah.
You know, and this demonstrates to me a complete lack of integrity on the part of the band and a complete contempt for us, the core audience. But as we have found in the nearly 20 years since, the core audience, they bought it.
Yeah.
I didn't. I haven't gone seen them once.
Yeah.
And I refuse to do it. But because, like I said, and I'm very adamant about this, the last Kiss concert has happened. It's over. You can't alter this formula. And I have a rationale and reason why, but I'm going to get to that in this program. We're going to talk about it, but let's keep this moving here.
Are we going to talk about the dates at all?
These dates down there, unless you've got something, I don't see anything popping out that really stands out.
Notes. Between the Japan and Australia dates, couple different things. One, they started adding in more Ace songs like Talk to Me. And I find that pretty interesting that Gene and Paul always say, well, the reason we had to keep playing the same set lists, and not to jump too far ahead, when Tommy finally jumps in the band, they talked about really changing up the set because, we finally got two musicians that can play all these songs. Well, clearly Ace knows how to play other songs if they're adding in Talk to Me and playing like medleys and, other fun, interesting stuff like that. So I do find that
medleys
interesting.
Suck, by the way.
You're not a fan of medleys?
Not at all.
Really?
I watched.
Why not?
There's only one group that can pull that off successfully, in my opinion, and only in a certain context, and that's the Who. And I don't know why. I don't know how they're able to weave it in so well.
Talking about the recent tours.
Well, they don't usually do it during the course of that, but they might run a medley of like Tommy songs or something.
Right.
But generally, in the way he does it, it's just kind of pretty. He's at least a little bit creative with it. But typically, the people that do medleys most were like country guys.
Yeah.
I've had 42 number one hits and I can't possibly play them all, but I'd like to do a medley of a few of them now.
Good thing they're in D, A, and G.
And it's like, I want to hear the whole goddamn song, motherfucker. Especially with Kiss, and it's like, that's the thing. That was my complaint about the farewell tour, was they weaved in 2 or 3 non-makeup era songs. They played Heaven's on Fire and Lick It Up, and I'm like, man, fuck you, don't play Heaven's. I don't want to hear that shit. I want to hear you play fucking Got to Choose or play Watching You or something fucking cool.
So
not this fucking bullshit that y'all were trying to peddle when no one was giving a shit.
Yeah, that was
no
weird.
one gave a shit then. Guess what? No one gives a shit now. They don't want to hear that shit. They don't want to see Peter Criss or Ace Frehley playing fucking Lick It Up.
It's
Fuck
weird.
You.
Like I spent this afternoon watching footage of both the 2001 Japan show with Ace and then the other show in Australia with Peter that we'll talk about later on. But yeah, you're right. The 80s songs are definitely very jarring.
Well,
they are. And so one of the other things I wanted to mention, the March 13th at the Tokyo Dome. That's now since been released as one of the off the soundboard recordings. Is that one of those? And that's one of the shows that Cap was mentioning that Eric Singer and both Ace play on. That's pretty readily available online. I will say, for the longest time, and I revisited it the weeks leading into this, that is an awesome live show. Like,
they're tight.
They are. Ace is on his game. Honestly, I'm
still drunk, but
I like the way Singer plays on this. He doesn't overplay it, as we kind of mentioned maybe on some of the Alice Cooper things he overplays. Mm-hmm. I think on this show, he plays right in line, kind of plays what the song serves, and I think this was a formidable lineup. I think this could have kept the weight going if it not had been for April 13th.
What's April 13th?
That's kind of deemed as the day that Ace just kind of lost it. Paul speaks about it kind of cryptidly in his book. He said Ace just had an off night, and he said ever since, he just hadn't been the same.
Would that be anything like Paul Stanley had an off night and his voice hasn't been the same since?
Oh, and then other accounts say that was
sick
the night.
of their fucking backbiting on each other.
Other accounts say that that was the night that Ace punched Tommy backstage.
Okay.
So it's like apparently Ace was just having a really bad night that night, which then leads into, I do believe, the following year. So they basically just took the rest of the year off.
Well, let me just say something to address what you're talking about in a weird way.
Okay.
Because here's where they're at. They obviously are looking at it from a different perspective now, this farewell thing. They're going, maybe that was premature. Maybe we want to keep doing this. Maybe cha-ching, 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 which, of course, is what the motivation here. They don't give a fuck about what the fans think. And let's just be honest here. And the only reason why I say that is because if it was a concern, there'd be a point where they had to have made a conscious thought. And I'm sure it was more than a conscious thought. It was probably a meeting. Yeah. But they sat down and were like, okay, what's the course of action? Okay. Well, the course of action is if we're going to continue, we've got to see if we're going to be accepted as we are.
Well, I think they already tested that once already.
Well, I'm saying, but in America, it's still a big question mark.
Well, they tested it with Ed Cannon that one night.
That's a one-off.
And then
anomaly.
They had the tailor-made costume ready for Tommy in case Ace flakes out. No, there's been too many
that's
people
fine.
with the accounts.
But again, it would have been as a quick fix.
Right.
My point is this: they would have to make a decision if they were going to continue as Kiss, the four characters, the demon, the Star Child, the spaceman, the Catman, or they were going to have to return to their non-makeup version.
Yeah.
And if they did that, what was going to happen? And I can tell you what was going to happen. There's no question in my mind. If they did that, they risked undoing all the accomplishments that they had made over the previous 5 years. And they would either go back to being
a club band,
club band, if they wanted to retain any sense of like we're still headlining, but in clubs, or they would be opening for larger acts. But who they're going to open for because there's not a lot of arena bands at this point.
Yeah, they wouldn't be doing.
And of course,
Aerosmith tours.
From this point on, they really don't do arenas. They go into the summer circuit.
Sheds, yeah. But they wouldn't be doing like Aerosmith tours. They'd be doing like, say, Blue Oyster Cult tours or something like that.
They would be as a headliner, yeah. But they will do an Aerosmith tour as the opening band.
Yeah,
that's their first. That's their first taste of this. But we're getting ahead of ourselves on that. So I mean, this is a risky spot they're in. But I'm
sure they're going to come out of the gate strong in 2002, though.
I don't know. It's just going to take a curious juggling to keep the momentum going. On November 20th that year
of 2002.
I'm getting them mixed up here.
Or
no,
2001.
This is 2001 still.
Okay.
Because this is an important thing. Ostensibly in line with the farewell, they released the Kiss box set.
Yes.
Now, before this set was ever formally announced, there was always plenty of hype well in advance. They were always teasing it. And it became referred to, based on Gene's hyperbole in fan circles, as the monster of box sets.
Well,
this was going to be we were told this is going to make think of the greatest box set. It's going to make it look like nothing.
This is the era where like everybody, like my best friend's dad was like the dad with all the cool music, and he had box sets for everybody. That Kiss one, the Who one, Maximum R&B, Bruce Springsteen, Eagles, all that.
That's the sad one.
Yeah, so everyone had their box set, but Kiss was going to put out the monster of box sets.
Oh yeah,
it was going to be DVDs of video footage you've never seen. There's going to be
CDs
live
full
shit.
of stuff you've never heard.
The Van Halen demos. All of this was promised on this thing. Well, it comes out on November 20th, and we get this relatively small, conservatively packaged set.
We get Wicked Lester.
It includes 94 tracks over 5 discs, about a third of which are previously unreleased demos, outtakes, and live tracks. and I say previously unreleased because it's the advent of the internet's happening. Some of this stuff's already beginning to circulate.
Oh, and it's already in like the 90s in the bootleg circles too.
So it was hardly the monster of a box set. And, you know, and this is where Kiss starts to come off the rails for me as a fan, because a lot of what they promise isn't materialized. They pull bait and switch too many times. They zig when they should zag. And it goes back to what I've always said, that they are not aware of their own relevance, and they're not relevant in the way that the Who is relevant. They're not relevant in the way, and I'm not saying that bad. I'm just saying that Kiss exists in their own self-contained context. I keep saying this. This is like a mantra on this show, I guess, by this point. You can't relate them in a normal way, because what they've created was so unique and so special that it only works in its own way, and they don't even know how to manage it at this point. And they haven't. They haven't since 1980. And, you know, that goes into, you know, we talked about who was the better manager, Coyne or McGee. You know,
even in the mid 90s, you don't think that was like the one time where they got it right?
No, they didn't. When, like, you're talking about, like, when they go to revenge thing, where they go. No, they didn't, and I'll tell you why. Because by this point,
I'm talking about the
this
tour.
is important.
Hold on,
okay?
no, hold on. We're going way off the rails because I want to ask an actual important question.
I'm getting ahead of my. I have all this in my notes. I'm glad you brought it up, though, because we're going to talk about it on this episode.
Okay, let me bring a little bit
here.
of brevity and lightness to this. Look, I know you were saying that, you know, a lot of the demo material that, you know, through the bootleg circles and the advent of internet had already been kind of released. I know that you bought the box set or had friends that bought the box set and made you a copy or two of the CDs. Was there any demo track off the first couple discs that you remember listening to going, I've actually not heard that, and I thought that was pretty cool.
But my point on that is there should have been a lot more of that.
Well, yes. What was your favorite, though? That's what I'm trying to get
back
at.
Then, I think the revelation at the time was hearing that Paul Stanley, God of Thunder.
Really?
Yeah. That was like, what the fuck? I've never, you know. But
Had you
I don't
heard
know. I can't remember. It's a blur there. I don't know if I had already heard that or not at that point. But my memory was that I had not heard it. I had
at least in that quality.
I had a copy of it. But I don't know if it came off the box set. And I did not buy the box set when it came out.
Gotcha.
I have since gotten it.
Yeah.
But
see, I think one of was the Eddie Kramer demos out by that point. Because I was going to say
no. You're talking about for Rock and Roll Over?
No, for the first album.
Oh, the first album. Oh, yeah, I had a bootleg of that.
Okay, because I was going to say
I had a bootleg of that from like
I thought the
demo.
The 80s. I thought the demo version of Strutter for that. Oh my god, that was the coolest.
No, I had a bootleg album with that. It was the demos on one side and Wicked Lester stuff on the other.
Yeah.
So all that Wicked Lester stuff had been floating in bootleg circles forever. That's kind of my point. It's like I was okay with that, and I was okay with the fact that, you know, if you were going to get like from the master tapes a high quality version of it, that would be totally cool. I would buy that. I wanted more of that, but most of it was just like an anthology. It was like, man, you know what? We how many anthologies can you put out? You know, at that same time, around that same time, there was the Mercury put out Kiss Gold or something, which was like a 2-disc set of shit.
It was of nothing,
and it's all the exact same shit. And I'm like, you're just reselling the same shit over and over again. You know.
And what's kind of sad is like between the Gene Simmons vault and the new deluxe editions of like Love Gun and Destroyer and soon to be Creatures of the Night, we're finally getting all those demos that they promised us back then.
Or the Alive 2 sound check tracks.
Yeah.
Well, and even then, you go to the live albums a lot. You know, some people look at live albums as ripoffs because you're just getting the same tracks over and over again. At least with Alive and Alive 2, they were consciously avoiding that. That's why, you know, there's only 3 sides live on Alive, was because they didn't have enough material. And even then, they still didn't have enough material because they put in songs.
A lot.
There were songs that they never played. Yeah. So, you know, but at least they were trying to give you something of value. And Kiss were always good at giving you something of value.
They prided themselves in that.
And here they don't. Here is like a very shoddily put together box set that isn't really of its.
But we have a couple different versions. We have the standard box set, and then we
get the guitar case thing.
Yeah, and then we have the deluxe, and then we have the super deluxe that comes with the guitar case and the gold record.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. Yeah, but that wasn't. Yeah, but how much was that?
Oh God, ridiculous! And you could only get that if you phoned in.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
on like a timeline ad or some shit.
Yeah, it was. Oh, trust me, there was ads for it on Kiss Online and everywhere else.
So zipping along here, we go into February now, a full year since the bombshell of Eric Singer. I can remember going, and you might remember this, Alex, was a Kiss convention here in town, and someone had made posters, and they were like wanted posters, and it said "Wanted Eric Singer for impostoring, and ruining a rock and roll legend" or whatever.
Our friend and vocalist for Self-Made Monsters, Eddie Ford, he still has one of those in his practice space.
So there was a sizable contempt. Now, I'm sure the person that made that has gone and seen them on every tour since. So,
Right.
It's still a really funny poster though. Like it's good. I like it.
February 5th, 2002, the group performed a set of 5 songs at the Lane Bryant Fashion Show.
Yeah, like I said, coming out of 2002 with a blaze of glory.
I mean, what was that all about?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this.
Paycheck.
I know it's all about. This is what that was exactly the point I'm getting to.
I'll tell you this though. February 5th, 2002. I know where I was though. On the computer trying to live stream that show.
Oh, was it live streamed?
It was going to be live streamed, I think, on the Lane Bryant website.
Didn't it fuck up?
It fucked up the entire time.
Yeah.
And of course,
because that technology was new then.
Oh, absolutely. And I was 9 when this was happening, so it's like I'm watching this, and like all I'm doing is like trying to just enjoy. Oh, it's new Kiss. I'm a Kiss fan, and Kiss is doing something new. Going back in retrospect, have you seen the video clips of this?
If I have, I have. It did not stick in my head.
Oh, it is imprinted in my head. It is. I say that this is cringier than the Revenge tour with the strippers on stage.
Well, that's because it's.
So they are playing. Let me pull up the song list again. I know they did Love Gun. So they did Shout Out Loud, Love Gun, God of Thunder, Lick It Up, Rock and Roll All Night. Okay. You would think, oh, okay, so they're kind of doing like a weird halftime thing in between, the
No,
modeling.
they're playing while the models walk.
Yes, they're playing while the models are walking and showing off the lingerie. And it's fucking weird.
And wait a minute, and just to be fair, I'm not body shaming anyone here because I am working on a prodigious gut of my own. But these aren't like
they're full-figured women.
They are plus-size women.
I mean,
and as Gene Simmons said in that stupid song,
the bigger the cushion, the better the pushing.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Most definitely. But it is still it's a weird, bizarro sight.
I'm thinking
to be seeing a fashion show
to me, it was
lingerie with Kiss playing in the background.
But this is like double down on like how not cool can you get? It's like, okay, you can do what's not cool. Playing a fucking fashion show. What is even less cool than that? Playing a fashion show for plus size women. No, I mean, God bless the plus. I like
Russ's Instagram handle.
I know.
How dare you, sir?
No, I'm just saying. I am a look. I like the thick ladies, so I'm not knocking it.
Thick with 2 C's,
but
y'all.
I'm just saying in a mainstream kind of sense, particularly in that era.
Oh, especially in that era.
Yeah. And I understand.
We're giving you shit.
And I acknowledge that,
isn't that more progressive
it's creating a greater acceptance at the time. But for a band like Kiss, it's like they're stumbling over themselves to do stupid shit.
To phrase it like this, you would expect Kiss to play the Playboy Mansion.
You would, and I mean, it's like.
Or like a haunted or an Elvira fucking Halloween party.
Which
or some
actually,
shit.
Side note, this is when Playboy was having like their second breath and had like their direct TV channel and everything else. So it would have made sense for Kiss to do something at the mansion.
Well, I'll tell you a little
Hugh
recovery.
Hefner, a personal friend of mine.
There's a little recovery here. On February 24th, they kind of pull a coup here. They perform at the closing ceremony of the 2002 Winter Olympics.
Yeah,
and
lip sync.
Is it? Yeah. Was it a lip sync? I watched it and I barely remember. Isn't that where they're on that float that goes across the ice and stuff?
And there's no way they could properly play while gliding along on that float.
And I think, isn't this the last performance with Ace Frehley?
This is the last performance with
Ace.
Oh,
wow. Quote-unquote performance.
And he quietly leaves the band after this.
Not behind the scenes, though. So this was not slated for his last performance. So if you look, March
6th,
yes.
they perform a private concert in Jamaica.
So that was booked when Ace was still part of the lineup. In Ace's book and Paul's book, he makes mention that he was in such a mental state that he thought, and this is by Ace's own admission also, he thought that this was a coup to get him to Jamaica to murder him. He was that paranoid and that much in a bad frame of mind. He thought that this was to get him out of the country because this was a private gig.
Q snowblind here.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, because this was a private, invite only gig, and Paul even mentions it was heavily armed. He doesn't say for who. So it's like it's kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, Ace did not, and that was his reason for leaving. He thought that they were trying to take him down there to whack him.
Well, if you watch that A&E doc, he does like a convention or something like that where he even says out loud, "I am sick of fucking touring," in so many words.
Well, okay. Well, there you go. He's gone.
Yeah.
And now we've got Tommy Thayer.
Yes.
And Tommy Thayer.
What a promotion.
But here's the thing about Tommy Thayer that I think people tend to overlook. And it's because, he's been a yes man for about 10 years at this point. This is not a put down,
Yeah.
If I had gotten in that position, I'd have been a yes man.
Of course. Who wouldn't?
It'd be a fun job if you could get it. I would have, and I don't know what his attitude or mindset would be in assuming that role. I don't know if he was eager and excited to do it or if he just did it because, he's in the exact same identical place in a certain sense that Vinnie Vincent was. Who else were they going to get?
Yeah.
Tommy.
It's like Tommy's here. He knows the songs. He knows how to play them. He knows Ace's licks. He can play that shit note for note. Not really, as we'll find out, but whatever. It's irrelevant.
I don't know, man. If you watch some of those early shows that Tommy performs with them, he's just a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
He is smiling, grinning, looking like a big fucking dork.
So
it's great.
So I have my own thoughts on this, but I'll discuss that when we talk about April 19th.
Well, then, here we go. What does farewell tour even mean?
Give us your money or we won't come back.
But they aren't, and they never acknowledged in any kind of formal way.
This is our last show.
This is it,
But no,
and it would seem like to me, if they wanted to take heat and flack, you didn't really break up. You could, the logical thing to do here is go, well, that was the end of the original lineup.
That's what they're saying now.
That's what they're saying now, more than it's 15 years later. They're finally coming to go, oh, yeah, we can say that now.
That sounds
That's
smart.
what they should have done is from the get-go going, this is the end of that lineup. That's the farewell tour of the original. But then again, it's like, well, why are you keeping with the makeup? Because they know no one wants to see them in any other way, which goes to prove the point that negates the entire non-makeup era. No one gave a fuck. That era doesn't exist anymore. No one cares. No one cared about it then. No one cares about it at this point in history, and no one's ever going to care about it. They're always going to continue in this makeup thing, right?
They push hard to the hair metal community.
Don't feed
really
them.
hard.
Don't feed them.
I'm just saying.
No, you can feed because I'm going to get into it more.
I know he's going to keep getting into it. Don't feed him.
I'm just saying what I
You might as
observed.
well go ahead and get used to it because that's what this episode's all about for me. Okay.
I agree with you. I'm just saying.
So that's all in you get same time frame as the year prior. Only now it's 2002.
Yeah.
And again, they don't play for the rest of the year.
Well, so April 19th.
Okay.
That was the American Bandstand 50th anniversary.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
That's why I kept saying.
I saw that and I meant to make a note of that. That's
So-
where I first saw Tommy in the Ace gimmick.
Because that was his first public debut.
Right.
There was nothing on the website.
Right. They
There
didn't
was.
announce
I
it, yeah.
remember though. I distinctly remember this coming up and seeing the previews for it on TV, and Mom even being like, we need to get the tape recorder ready. We need to record it. We're going to watch it that night. And then a few days prior, I remember her asking me, do you know if Ace is playing on this show? And I was like, and I remember that being a weird question. And I'm like, I would guess so, I think. She's like, well, because Eric's playing drums now. I'm like, right. She's like, do you think Ace is playing? I was like, I'll look on the website an hour later after getting the website loaded. No, I'm not seeing anything on here. I remember watching that night.
Was that a dial-up joke?
Yes.
It's true. It is 2001.
That's why she was still asking me and not immediately like checking the computer. And then we were watching it that night, and she was as closest to the TV as I was because she was looking. And if you rewatch the footage, they cut around him a lot. You only get a few glimpses to show, like they show Eric a good bit, but they do not show Tommy. And I remember Mom being depressed that night.
Well, Ace was her favorite member.
Ace was her number one. And for the fact that... this is where I was leading in. So this is my thoughts on Tommy. I've had a decent amount of time to think with this because I started out hardcore anti-Tommy, big Tommy hater. Am I still a fan of him today? No. Am I a fan of the person? Yes. I've gotten to understand the person more.
He's fine.
And that part I've come to terms a lot more with, which has made me soften on him some.
Right.
So, with that in mind, I think this is where they messed up on a few fronts. Because I, to this day, am still not as bothered by Eric Singer in Peter Criss's makeup as I am Tommy and Ace's. And they've got a couple reasons why.
Well, part of it's probably because he's on the front line.
That's one aspect.
That's a visual.
That is one
that's
aspect.
an important part of the visual.
Although, feel and drums and, hate using this word, but swagger, all matter behind the kit. So have the wrong drummer and it can still mess up. I'm still cool with Singer. This is where I feel that Kiss messed up on a few different fronts with Tommy. One, Eric Singer never played in a Kiss cover band where he was Peter Criss. That, when the fans realized that he played in Cold Gin and played the Ace character, I honestly believe that from the start tainted it. Because he came from a tribute band playing Ace.
Well, he came from Black and Blue,
but
and they did that on the side. They didn't,
but he did it though.
But he had done it.
And Kiss. Well, Ace. Paul and Gene.
Roll call.
Yeah, roll call. Paul and Gene both came out to some of the shows. So I think that too. The other thing I just mentioned. Before the American Bandstand thing, to the best of my knowledge, there was no mention that Ace was not going to be in the band anymore.
I don't remember that being accurate. I have a memory of knowing that was happening, but by that point I was starting to tune out.
I got
again. I was like, okay, this is kind of over. Let's jump cut and keep this rolling.
Okay,
here.
I'll keep it at 2 then.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What was your third?
No, you can just keep ranting.
No. I did.
You've got a big notebook full.
I'm losing my place with this. So go ahead. Give me your third reason.
And the third reason being, honestly, I think it's only because he was at this point tour manager. By the farewell tour, he was tour manager.
That's what I was saying. It's like he was in the Vinnie Vincent spot. It was like, okay, who are we going to get?
Vinnie Vincent was in the hidden spot though.
Yeah.
Tommy was a little bit more. It's not too far separated from like if Doc was in shape, them throwing Doc up on stage. It's not. But you get what I'm saying.
He was the
though.
tour manager.
But it's still someone within the paperwork side of the band now being part.
Well, the question is, if they knew they had this problem with Ace, do you think there was was this not premeditated, but were they grooming him for future use?
I honestly think they were. I mean,
But if they were grooming him for future use, then did they even really ever believe in this ruse of a farewell tour?
I think they were mentally prepared for every scenario.
I wholeheartedly believe that Tommy was quote unquote groomed from the start, and I also completely believe the story from multiple people that he had his own spaceman costume in the wings since the reunion tour.
The question is, at this point,
so if he's got his own costume
and all of this is in play, then they never were serious about a farewell tour.
I think he was groomed if Ace were to flake or back out, like the whole story of him getting made up and Ace showing up last minute.
Well, then the answer is stop.
Yeah, that's what my point was. I think
Just
he was
fucking
being groomed.
Stop.
When you get to this point, for that,
stop. It's not Kiss anymore. We're back to where we were in 1982. You just fucking stop. Okay?
Yeah.
You can't,
But what about the people that want it?
I don't relate to these people. I don't know.
But there's a lot of them that buy
dude,
tickets.
I
have to
look
play
at
devil's
I know
advocate.
that's fine. I'm the devil's advocate because that's the mainstream point of view. I occasionally look at that Kiss FAQ message board thing, my eyes cross. I'm like,
I'm on there a lot, guys. I love you.
I have absolutely nothing in common with these people at all. Okay, they're metal fans. I'm not a heavy metal fan.
Yeah.
I don't think of Kiss as a heavy metal band. I don't relate to them on that level. I don't, to me,
I don't agree they're a heavy metal band.
They're not and it's just like nothing that they do. I'm just watching this band blunder time and time and time again for the very same reason I said. They don't even know their own context. They don't know who their fans are. They don't know how their audience reacts to them or why. They're just chasing a dollar, and that's blatantly what they're doing at this point. And that's insulting to me personally, but I understand.
That gave them a lot of dollars.
But it made them money. But I don't think like
you
that.
gave them a lot of dollars.
No, I gave them dollars up until that farewell tour.
Then, yeah.
Well, it becomes that thing where it's like it's not a band anymore; it's a company.
And like I said, if they were, anytime they created something of value, But the last thing I can remember that had a Kiss logo on it that had any value was like when they did those Kiss M&Ms. But anyway, that was the last thing they put out. Anything I was like, oh, I'm going to buy that.
No. So you're saying that Kiss just needs to make more food products and you'd buy it?
Probably. if it was good food. I mean, if they're going to put like Kiss chocolate covered cherries, I'm not going to buy that.
Well, what about Gene
like
Simmons blazing hot sauce?
No.
You don't like hot sauce?
No.
Oh.
So no, I won't buy anything with a Kiss logo.
Soda?
I don't have any of that. I do. I have a couple of bottles.
I got a bottle.
I've had the Kiss Cola before.
See, we do it though.
I know, because we're suckers and fools and nerds. Let's fast forward now to February of 2003. So now we've jumped 2 years now in all of this, and the band returned to Australia, and this time it's with a returning Peter Criss.
Yes.
But no Ace. It's Peter Criss and Tommy Thayer. This is a dizzying case of musical chairs.
And you know who to thank for that?
Doc McGee?
Nope.
The band themselves.
Nope. Aerosmith.
Oh, yeah, because of the contract.
Yes.
Well,
due to the Aerosmith contract, a minimum of 3 original members had to be part of the band.
Wait, that's not until 2004.
Well, you were saying that this was part of the Aerosmith.
2003. No.
Oh, okay.
Australia.
Okay.
Did I say Aerosmith?
No, you didn't. You're talking about Peter Criss coming back in the band.
Okay, I thought that was the first thing.
No, we're going to Australia. No, we're not talking about the Aerosmith tour in this show. We're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Yeah,
a lot happened.
Well, you said jump cut.
Because that's just the way this history's going from here on out. It gets confusing. But they record, on this tour, they record something called the Kiss Symphony.
With the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra.
At the Telstradrome. Telstra? Is that how you say this? Telstradrome?
Hey, Russ, it's the Telstra.
Telstra. Yeah.
Well, it's recorded on February 28th in Melbourne at the Telstra Dome. I can't even say that. I guess because I don't have an Australian accent.
This was the first pay-per-view that I bought, actually, when I was like getting into Kiss. And it came with the DVD upon the purchase.
Well, I don't know when this gets released, but we're going to talk about it now.
Yeah.
This Symphony idea, it seems like it's a wholesale cut rate copying of the Metallica S&M album from 4 years prior.
Metallica does one, Scorpions does one.
It's not, that Metallica album is in and of itself is a giant heaping steaming pile of pretentious shit.
I didn't care for it either.
Why anyone thinks this will be a good idea is beyond my comprehension.
Because it's something different, Russ.
But we've seen this practice many times before with virtually identical results. Maybe the Moody Blues were perhaps the most successful at it back in the 60s when they did the Days of Future Past. But
see, that works for that music, though.
You've seen Deep Purple do it. Procol Harum had done it. Even Kiss had their own flirtation with it on Music from the Elder.
Yeah.
And all of that's pretty abysmal. And Rick Wakeman pushed the idea of symphonic rock to its most logical conclusion, which is virtual self-parody on the Spinal Tap scale. And that's where the head catches the tail. I don't know if you ever even heard those Rick Wakeman albums.
It's like there was one that was based off of a book, but I can't remember what the book
Journey
was.
to the Center of the Earth.
That's what it was.
I had that album.
Well,
it's not that one. It doesn't sound anything like that.
I don't know.
But yeah, the symphony thing is something that's been was played around with, like, progressive rock bands, like you were saying. But in a heavy metal context, it always kind of seems a little out of place.
I don't get it. And with this in particular, because I feel so adamant about Kiss being, a four on the floor, proletariat kind of rock and roll, the lumpen teenager, your average teenager, that was very accessible to anyone and anything. But we've talked about it in past episodes. Their music, and part of the reason why I don't consider them heavy metal is because it's a very accessible kind of thing. Whereas heavy metal is very arrogant. It's in the neoclassical traditionalist of the great European. Blah, blah, fuck you. Fuck your heavy metal. Fuck your fucking goddamn guitar solos. Fuck all that shit. It ain't rock and roll. It's got nothing to do with rock and roll. It's got nothing to do with what I like.
Let me ask you this.
But I'm getting on the thing. But this whole symphony idea, though, bleeds into this shit. And it's pretentious and stupid. And it's like...
Well, what did you think of Destroyer?
That's my point is when you get into this, like... that weaving into that stuff, we've already seen it. I said the Elder, but even Destroyer, and at the time, Destroyer was rejected by their fan base to the point that they went back.
I wonder if you're having the exact same
probably
heated thing that fans had back then.
And I'll tell you, but it works to a certain extent. It's mostly on Great Expectations, and it works again on this but only because they're just slipping the hand back in the glove.
Well, they do 3 sets. They do a full on, amps in the face set. Then they do an acoustic set, and then a full set with like loud guitars and the orchestra.
But the symphony brings no real life to these songs to me.
I agree to a point, and the reason I asked about Destroyer was because even songs outside of something like Great Expectations that had a lot of strings built into the song to start with. Take a song like Detroit Rock City. You can hear a symphony playing along with that, and sure as shit, that's what they did.
You know what? Go ahead.
There's a lot of moments in these songs, especially God of Thunder.
I thought the God of Thunder one was kind of cool at the intro.
And I'll tell you where my flip on that is. And we've talked about this before in the past. Yes, I can hear horn sections, but I hear a Memphis Stax funk soul vibe to it. We've talked about this, R&B and soul music of that era. I can hear God of Thunder with the Bar-Kays behind them going ba 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 ba. That's okay. I could hear that arrangement and it worked.
Yeah.
But this is just bombastic and dumb. It doesn't bring anything. Most of it to me, listening to it, and this is the first time I ever listened to this record because I had no interest in it. I had negative interest in it. And so I had to listen to it for this fucking episode.
You can tell he's so happy about it.
No, I wasn't, but I was trying to be like when they do the electric part, which is just the band, it's very thin sounding.
It's very awkward because it's Tommy with Peter. It's not a winning combo.
It's just... it's competently played, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't like Tommy's interpretation, Ace's leads on it, particularly on Calling Dr. Love.
Yeah.
There was parts I pulled out that I was like, but that's nitpicking. Okay, I'll let that be my nitpick. But where it really fails me, and this is true of any kind of live material now. It could have been the 4 original guys, but they just. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the equipment they use now, which I suspect it is, but it has none of that warmth and bottom and just the whole it just sounds thin
it's
and
very
processed.
Thin and very much the highs are boosted.
It sounds like fucking
time.
solid state amps with like all their processed gear and all this.
It is.
And I know, pickups. And I'm like, it just sucks. It sounds like shit. It
the
just
tone
is
unlistenable
bullshit. And then it sounds like, and then to add, to make it worse, what do they got? They got like 70s B-movie disco tracks laid underneath it. That's what it sounds like. It's like it's just nothing on this was good. I was like, maybe I'll be wrong here. Maybe I'll get an aha moment because I've had some aha moments listening to some of that 80s stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I'll even say I'll come to like Lick It Up. Oof. The album, the album, not the song, but I have. I mean, there's songs on that I thought were good songs.
Look, I like Nowhere to Run. You can't fight me on
That's
that one.
fine. But I'm just saying, going back and revisiting gave me some aha moments. But by and large, this is just, and there's a reason why no one remembers this. It had no impact when it came out. It came, it went.
I think they were really smart with their set list, though.
When
because
people talk about Kiss Alive records, they're talking about 2 records, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree on that. But I think there are also, with all the times that we can especially look at Kiss now and be like, oh, they just threw this together. They're not putting time, thought, energy,
think they
passion. I think they put a lot of thought into the songs they picked for each segment. So for the Balls Out, just guitar set, you had Do Strutter, Let Me Go Rock and Roll, Lick It Up, Calling Dr. Love, Psycho. So yeah, you could have gone without Psycho Circus. You could have done without Lick It Up. But they picked some really good electric rockers, especially Let Me Go Rock and Roll for a set like that. Then the acoustic set with the small orchestra, you got Beth, Forever, Going Blind, Sure Knows Something, and Shandy. It still doesn't beat the MTV Unplugged versions of Going Blind and Sure Knows Something, but it's cool to finally hear Beth with an entire orchestra behind it, or a part of one, enough to play the parts. And it was cool to actually hear a whole band version of Shandy. So those were 2 kind of pretty cool pulls that they did because of the tools they had at hand. And then the symphonic set is extremely Destroyer heavy, Bob Ezrin minded, because he was orchestrating songs in such a way that it could be interpreted as classical music. So songs like Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World, Shouted Out Loud, God of Thunder, all of these songs lend themselves from the bare bone to be large symphonic songs.
I disagree completely.
I think the song it falls apart on the most is Rock and Roll All Night.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that too. But I see it completely unnecessary. I don't hear any. It doesn't build any kind of dramatic tension or any of that stuff underneath.
I think it makes it bigger.
I didn't even think it was even recorded all that well. It doesn't seem like it's very pronounced.
It's not recorded well. It's not mixed well.
It's just.
But I feel the passion there. I feel the energy of it. I like it.
They had fun. Like when we got the DVD, it was hilarious because you talk about who is Kiss pitching to in this time period. Who are they trying to, they're trying to find their audience, but they don't know who their audience is. So they put out this DVD and they kind of show the orchestra players putting on the Kiss makeup, and it's fucking adorable, and blah, blah, blah. And my mom is watching this with me and loves it. And that was kind of
so cute.
That's so interesting, though. I like that. I like that point of view.
Now,
look, they're doing the symphony. I like that point, man. That's good.
See, that's where it's a turnoff for me.
It is a turnoff, but it is
an interesting
view,
that attitude, though, is why there was a rejection for their core bass in 1976 to Destroyer. It was just that vibe, And what I get off on, like Destroyer, even on Great Expectation, the stuff that I like best about that song isn't the choral arrangement, isn't the symphonic arrangement. It's the guitar. There's open notes, blah, blah, blah.
You see Tommy play the guitar.
Yeah, he's always wanted to do that, but I mean, none of that, it just doesn't work to me. It's a real thin sounding live sound, and then they try to add in this, and it's them chasing someone else's success. And that's the other thing that bothers you, because we've seen it again. Metallica did it, and it was like,
and it was a success. Even though
we gotta follow them, And again, the band that doesn't ever follow anybody now has been following every trend that come down the pike since 1982.
Yep.
I don't know. I just, I go again. It's just they're not a mere rock and roll band. And I'm kind of reaching my close on this, and I really won't have much else to say. And I don't know if you have anything else to add or contribute to this.
Well, are we going to go into the Japan dates, or are we going to save that for the next episode?
Did they play Japan after that?
Yeah, they went because that was in February.
Go. I went as far as this because I figured.
Yeah, they did play a handful of dates immediately after that. With
Peter.
With Peter, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing
I thought this was it with Peter.
I was going to ask if, well, it's already been answered, but which lineup did y'all prefer, the Tommy Peter or the Eric Ace one?
I don't really. I mean, I'm completely ambivalent towards either one. I don't care because they've just the bloom came off the rose by this point for me. Because again, it's like my point is this: like Kiss wasn't a mere rock and roll band; they were a cultural force, and it was like. It maybe not quite as big, but in the same rarefied air as the Beatles, as Elvis, or as Michael Jackson. And I can't think of anyone else that has had that kind of an impact. You know, I mean, you may not know their names individually, but you see the faces. Yeah. You know that's Kiss.
You don't see Led Zeppelin clocks with the band members' faces on it.
It isn't like Grandma was going to mix up the Beatles with the Kinks or whatever. You know. You knew Kiss when you saw it. I mean, and it's existed to this day as, you know, and that's what they banked on with replacing these guys and just putting them in the same persona, you know. But you can't put them in the same persona because they're not the same persona. And that's, I mean, it's almost like... well,
it's a franchise now. It's like if Tom Brady is moving to Florida, you got to get a new quarterback.
Well, it's in a way. It's to me. It's like old school pro wrestling. Back in the old days, you know, they sold wrestling as real, and the wrestlers had their own little code of silence. They called it kayfabe.
Yes,
you know, and it kept the secret a secret. Well, Kiss had kayfabe too. You didn't see them without their makeup ever. They were always Kiss.
Alive was alive.
So much, I mean, you know, and once you figured out what the deal was, same with wrestling. Once they pulled the curtain back and you learned all, you know, people don't relate to wrestling in the same way now that we related to it when I was a little kid, or even the grown adults, you know. People would try to climb in the ring. You know, you hear these old school stories of guys getting like, you know, slashed with razor blades on the way to the ring and stuff, you know. Cops not protecting the bad guys, like, well, you shouldn't have done that, you know.
Yeah, there's no mystique with Kiss anymore, and it's like they're cute now. My mom, you know, sees them as like this fun rock and roll band that has Symphony every now and then. They're not the demonic, you know, Knights in Satan's service anymore.
And in the 70s, though, they were a mystery. We didn't know anything about them. We didn't know their backstories. We didn't know the interpersonal politics of the four members, how they got along, how they didn't get along, whether or not they, you know, we didn't know any of that. And so much, and I've said this before probably in a previous episode, but it bears repeating, especially at this point in their history, because from my perspective as an old fan, right, growing up in a time where we didn't know anything about them, so what was Kiss really at the end of the day but a reflection of who we were as individuals? What you brought to the table was largely what Kiss was going to reflect back to you, as you know, if you were 14 or 8 or whatever, you know, they're because you didn't know. And if you know, and that's one thing I think was so much fun for Kiss for me, was it triggered my imagination so much. It catapulted my imagination to this other level where I'm now thinking of this group as something even bigger. And that's what made them so iconic and special in their time, because, you know, I don't know, it's just like, I wrote some notes about this to kind of keep me on point, but you know, when you start to reinvent or redefine that band, it completely alters the formula. It's not like REO Speedwagon where you can put a new drummer in. He's a great drummer. Oh, he's a great drummer. Journey. Oh, look, they got a new drummer. He's a really great drummer. You know, you can't do that. It's like with Journey's had a hard time replacing Steve Perry, so they got to get a Steve Perry fucking sound-alike.
Yeah.
And Kiss are just not doing sound-alikes. They're doing look-alikes.
Yeah.
Because that's what they have to do, but it's not the same. You can't do that. You know, even going back to what you said in the, you know, I was going to say about the Revenge era, by the time they were trying to reinvent and redefine themselves as like a street rock band, you know, Gene got his goatee and all this. No, we already know now. You know, we know that you're middle class. You came from middle class fucking backgrounds, upper middle class backgrounds. You guys come from, you know, comfortable backgrounds. You guys
Gene really didn't.
Gene really did once he got here. Yeah, you know, it's like.
But what about like when the initial...
Gene went to fucking college. You know, you learn these things and you realize
that
they
was
were
also different in the late 60s than it is from the perspective of today.
We know they came from middle class backgrounds. We know, obviously, Gene's story is like the American dream story. It's a wonderful story. All of them have unique and fascinating backstories, but we know these stories, and we know they weren't fucking street tough hooligan kids. Peter was.
Yeah. Ace was to a point.
But Gene never was, but now he's going to masquerade as that under this guy's under revenge. And it's like, fuck you, man. You're insulting me with this bullshit. Stop playing roles. The role as Gene Simmons as a demon, we didn't know anything about that guy. We didn't know that he came from Israel. We didn't know that his mom was in a concentration camp. We didn't know the horrors that they had to go through.
So that
we
is
didn't
the
know
big,
that.
So
all
pause.
we knew
that's the big disconnect between a fan like you and a fan like me, because when I came in, that was the information I was getting. That's what made me latch on, though. Finding out Gene's history, finding out that there was all this turmoil within the band. My first visuals were Second Coming, and then later on getting the Confidential thing. And on Confidential or Extreme Close Up, one of the two of those Revenge eras, they really lay everything out.
And that's exactly the point I'm making. Like when I say about wrestling, it's like wrestling fans today relate to it on a whole different level than the way we did once.
But I think that captured me more because I'm sitting here. Because that almost created a brand new mystique, knowing
there's no mystique.
No, it did for me. Hold on, because it created this thing of this band imploded. These two guys ran off, weren't extremely successful. Now they're back. Now knowing all of the history of everything, these four formidable, people are back together. To me, it created a bigger legacy for me as a young fan, seeing all the things they went through and look where they are now, which is why maybe I kind of hyper-focused during this transition period, because since I grew up knowing all of the backstory and that they're back now, seeing them split apart and separate again immediately intrigued me. I'm like, oh, well, what's happening now? Since we know shit went wrong before, what's going wrong now?
Yeah, but
and all of a sudden, it opened up a brand new era of the Kiss kind of. I hate using this phrase, but history.
And with me, with the Kiss Symphony, when we got that pay-per-view on DVD and we watched it and kind of consumed it, that broadened my curiosity even further, because that was like the first Kiss show I saw. So I would go to my friend's house afterwards, and he would have, copies of Hotter Than Hell, Kiss Alive, Destroyer, and I would go through those going like, wow, this band was so much cooler back then. Look at all this shit.
I totally agree with that. Well, to me, knowing all of that, the things that you're complaining about, to me, those were all pluses.
Yeah. To me, it ruined the band. That. It ruined everything that was fun and unique and special about them, because it was better to not know. It's like, again, wrestling, it's better to not know. Maybe you knew. I mean, I knew they weren't fucking superheroes, and I knew wrestling wasn't real, but I could suspend my disbelief and I could involve myself in that dynamic and make it work. And once you got past that, and to me, it's like you replace an original member, and it's not just somebody merely wearing a costume. It's, I don't know.
No, I completely
it just
agree
rings
with that.
cheap, okay? It's like, it just demonstrates this lack of integrity, and it forces me to concede to a position that I don't want to concede, which is the idea that they were exactly that commercial enterprise that they got criticized so heavily for back when they started. I don't want to say that, because I keep going back to, but they always at least provided something of value. And honestly, those first 6 records are unassailable. They had some great fucking records. They did that shit in 4 years, 3 years time.
Yeah.
6 records in 3 years. Who does that kind of consistency today? Not even, and nobody. I mean, we're going to see 2 records over the next 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're going to be debatable.
If that.
So maybe I was suckered as a naive kid. Okay? Maybe. And maybe now my eyes have been opened that, they're going to just...
You're woke, Russ.
I'm woke, oh God. and I'm just like, it was better not knowing. And it would have been served better had they respected it enough to realize how unique and special it was, to put it down and go, we're not doing that anymore.
No, I totally agree with that.
And you put it away, and you've got something that still preserves, and still you could, they could still continue to create the merchandise. It's easier for me to buy that merchandise no, when I do, if I buy any merchandise, it's feeding to that little kid that bought into that mystique. I don't. A friend of mine bought the Pez set that they came out with about 10 years ago, and I looked at it. I was like, "Look, they're modeled after Eric and Tommy."
Yeah.
And he did a double take. He was like, "Son of a bitch!" He didn't even notice it because they don't say Eric Singer and Tommy on it.
But you can see on the makeup designs that even the head model.
That's what I'm saying.
Tommy's got a very strong jawline.
That pronounced jawline, and I'm just
and
like,
Eric's got a thin nose.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still easy to suspend that out of your. You can just go, okay, that was just a poor mold or whatever. I've seen some action figures where the molds aren't really that great, but it's the classic lineup. I can do that. That's stuff I can do. But with all the stuff that they're starting to do in this era, especially for me, putting those guys in the same costumes, going, hey, look, it's the new Catman in the new space. And I'm just like, and I get where Paul's like, well, what are we supposed to do, Elephant Boy? No, you're supposed to stop, motherfucker.
So
have
Paul,
integrity and respect for your own self and your own history and go, you know what? Kiss is over. And if you still want to play with those guys, great. But he doesn't want to play with those guys and have to go back to a different level. So instead, he's going to fuck you. He's going to fuck you. He's going to fuck me. He's going to fuck everybody that fucking pays to see him. And people are readily fucking lining up, pulling down their pants, going, yeah, fuck me. I don't understand it.
But if they're enjoying it,
hey, that's great for them. But I'm not buying it. I'm not paying for this fucking ruse.
So I'm glad you brought up the whole Elephant Man or Giraffe Boy, because they love throwing that out, especially Paul. So he likes using that one, and I'm guessing you also don't subscribe to his other line of viewing, which is who's playing Batman tonight?
Well, which goes to the next question, which kind of really goes to a future episode. They've teased the idea of a Kiss version 2.
Yeah.
Their own, and which goes back to what Gene's always wanted. He didn't want to be the next Beatles. He wanted to be the next
Coca-Cola.
He wanted to be Disneyland. He wanted to be McDonald's. He wanted a franchise. Okay. You can't, but there's a point where even all that stops becoming special.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. By that point,
I can see them pulling that off though better than no one wants to see the Eagles Mark II.
It's just going to be Cirque du Soleil.
Well, that's exactly what it's going to be. Exactly. But I'm wondering how successful it's going to be. It's going to be like Elvis tributes.
I was going to say, it's going to be like, say Nick Simmons takes over as Gene's role and play, and they play like, say, they still play Shout It Out Loud, Rock and Roll All Night. Stuff that's going to be 70, 80 years old down the line.
This is what's going to happen. We're going to take a vacation. We live in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're going to take a vacation to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and we're going to drive past one of those Grand Ole Opry tribute things, and it's going to say, tonight, Kiss. Yeah. That's what's going to happen.
Well, it'll be, or Las Vegas, which is what they got accused of from the get-go with the stage show was, it's all Vegas glitz. Now everybody's doing it, and now everyone's doing residencies, including Kiss, in Las Vegas. So they took something that wasn't cool and made it cool and acceptable. But yeah, there's another thing where they kind of broke ground. Was it good or bad? I don't know. But there's no one else I can see pulling that off in such a grand way as Kiss. I mean,
so they don't even have to rely on the Catman is now Batman. It's like we don't get mad because someone played Batman after Adam West. We don't get mad.
I do. I work with guys that are comic book nerds. I'm not a comic book nerd. Yeah. Right. So these superhero movies, they come out with superhero movies, and I'm like, who the fuck is Ant-Man? I thought that was a joke. And people are like, no, you don't know it. And I'm like, no, I don't read comic books, man. There's Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and Hulk. I don't fucking know, but to me, it's like in Superman movies, you're never going to top Christopher Reeve. He is a definitive Superman.
Right.
There is no definitive Batman.
But that's the one they like
and
using.
I like, everybody that I've seen, every Batman movie I've seen, I thought whoever played Batman did, it was good. It was a good Batman.
Yeah,
I
like the Christian Bale ones. People shit on those a good bit, but I like them.
I'm
like he was dark and brooding.
He's
He
fine.
did good.
He's fine. He's Batman. But with Superman, I'm like, no, he's not a good Superman.
We better calm down. Chris is about to barrel down the
That's
steps and be
fine.
like, we talking movies.
Superman, I'm just saying, but you've got these definitive, that's kind of my point. It's like with these guys, they're so iconic, they're so definitive, and they've gone and they've just like watered it down, and they've watered it down for mainstream consumption, which is always a shitty thing. Because
So you're saying you don't agree with it?
no, I think that you leave it alone. They should just have stopped. The smart
I'm
thing.
talking about the mindset that Paul
Right.
likes to
No,
push.
I don't agree. No, he's wrong. They should have fucking stopped. What you do, you stop. You did a farewell tour, motherfucker. Stop. And if you want to keep playing music, fine, go play music. If you want to play with Tommy and Eric Singer, go play with those guys.
You want to go do Soul Station?
Go do Soul Station.
Yeah.
Go play Kiss songs, but don't call it Kiss.
Do a club tour as a solo act. It would have worked. I'd go see that, 20
well,
years
he
ago,
did.
but
And I think that's what the real future is probably going to be. Is you're going to see Gene and Ace going out with that Gene's Ace,
Gene's
whatever,
Ace Band.
yeah.
and they'll be opening for people or whatever, and they'll be playing the classics.
Because Gene honestly does like playing with Ace. As much as those shows weren't good, you could still see on Gene's face he enjoyed playing with Ace.
I think Gene, deep down in his cold, black, money grubbing heart, agrees with me. I think that in his, he's always the first one to say, in a perfect world, it's still been the four original guys.
Yeah.
But he's also, I'm chasing $1 too.
Yeah.
He doesn't, but you don't have to. It's like you've reached a point where you're financially secure. You don't have to do this, and you're doing it anyway. And
Well,
for
I
end?
will say, we usually don't go into, members' personal lives and stuff. The financially secure part did change during the farewell tour. Paul was going through his divorce.
Well, okay,
and that changed his monetary
There you
standing.
go. Well, that probably changed his.
So
his
again, we
attitude.
don't like getting into it much,
That's
but
fair.
that does
That's
play
fair.
into it
Yeah.
a little bit.
I'm sure it did.
Because Paul, I feel if Paul mentions it in an interview, it's fine. Paul said that he lived in Gene's guest room or guest house for like a few weeks while they got things sorted out, and like the house got swapped around and shit. So
That's interesting.
So he was in a moment. He was in a pickle for about a month.
Hey, if you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes.
And he admits that fully in his book. So that's not too mean.
Well, but it's still, they've reached the end. It's over, and they're gonna, it's easy for me to say, and their apologists will go, "What, they keep selling out arenas and they're still doing tours and all this," and I'm like, yeah, but it hasn't been good, and it hasn't been good for a long time. We're gonna talk about how it got to be increasingly bad.
When Gene becomes a TV star.
I'm going to have to stop. I'm going to have to go back to like it was in the 80s. I'm going to have to start relating to them on a different level. And I don't know how we're going to continue this show.
I can help because, like I said,
we'll figure it out.
I was fascinated by this era because, again, it's like by the time I'd fully hopped on, heard about a farewell tour, and all of a sudden, like you said, these people start showing up in these iconic makeup designs created by these original people, not comic book characters, not fictional characters. These are real life people creating personas, and now these other people are taking over the personas that real life people created for themselves, not as a mirror, as a comic book, not a comic strip. I guess that's my point.
These aren't characters. They're personas.
People. Yes, they're personas.
They're a reflection of the person that made it. Peter Criss was an outward reflection of who he felt on the inside.
Alice Cooper talks about that. He's like, he has his stage persona and his offstage.
Can you imagine if there was a new Alice Cooper? How would that go over?
Wow. Yeah.
Or that matter, again, a new Gene or a new Paul.
They say it's going to happen.
Yeah, but how will that be accepted?
I don't.
They're going to try.
Within that's a whole other episode.
I know.
and we'll get there.
We'll get there.
And we'll get to that point. Don't worry. I feel we can keep this train on the tracks.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's
but
gonna get me. I'm gonna be the grouchy grouch for the rest of these episodes.
So there's not a lot of cool stuff.
I'll help. But no, unlike the namesake, over the next couple of years, though, there's plenty of time to turn. They take a lot of rest stops.
There's going to be, It's like no time to turn. Well, but there is time to stop and take a rest.
Yeah.
We'll just stop right here and just breathe a little bit. So hopefully you guys will keep up with this because it's going to get probably a little bit comical and a little bit grouchy. And we'll see where it all lands. And hopefully you'll tune in for another episode because this one probably did not win many fans.
How about this? If anybody's
the loyal listeners liked it, I'm sure.
If any listeners are have any ideas to pitch to us in like comment threads and stuff like that, please do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll do a little mini plug. If you look in the episode description, there's a link for our Discord. A couple listeners actually did sign up after I mentioned it. So sign up in the Discord link. We'll chat Kiss in there. We'll post about any cool video links that get posted in. And that way, it's just in a single little thread, like-minded, no extra bullshit, none of that stuff. It's fun, y'all.
We won't shit on your ideas.
No, because Russ isn't in there.
Much.
Russ isn't in there, so it won't happen. But yeah, sign up for the Discord. It's free. It's easy to use. Y'all have fun in it.
And hopefully we'll see y'all or y'all will hear us. Or I don't know what the words are, but hopefully you'll return for another episode of No Time to Turn.
Thank you for listening. Please insert another coin by supporting the show for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/somethinggoodnetwork.